This was supposed to be the perfect dream setup. A football star's big empire, super rich connections, and a wedding so fancy it broke the internet. The Beckhams and the Peltz family looked like nobody could touch them, like modern-day royalty dressed in designer clothes, riding private jets, and always flashing perfect smiles. Every move looked amazing. Every photo looked like it was planned perfectly, and everyone believed the dream without even asking questions. But behind those pretty pictures and fancy red carpet poses, something was slowly breaking. What began as quiet rumors about wedding problems has now turned into a giant public fight, shaking up the rich and famous from London to Hollywood. And the biggest surprise? Brooklyn Beckham didn't keep quiet this time. He stepped up and started everything. This wasn't just a small comment or a moment someone misunderstood. Brooklyn spoke up in a way that ripped off the curtain completely, turning a private family mess into a very public blow-up. Now he and Nicola are standing strong, refusing to back down, no matter how awkward things get. Fans are going crazy online trying to figure out how such a glamorous story turned into a full-on family fight so fast. People are asking tough questions, and the mess is spreading so quickly that some are wondering if this could permanently hurt the Beckham name itself. Brooklyn Beckham has been watched closely since day one. As the oldest kid of David and Victoria Beckham, being famous wasn't a choice. It just happened. Cameras, pressure, and people judging him followed him everywhere. And now he's finally saying what nobody expected, sharing that what looked like a dream life might have actually felt more like a prison the whole time. He made it sound like the same famous family that made him known also trapped him. A life where everyone watched every move, questioned every decision, and made every mistake into a huge deal. Brooklyn hinted that there was no room to breathe, no space to grow, and no freedom to pick his own path without pressure pushing in from every side. For years, people on the inside quietly talked about problems between Brooklyn, his wife Nicola Peltz, and the Beckham family. But most people just shrugged it off as normal family stuff, the kind that powerful families deal with quietly behind closed doors without letting anyone see what's really going on. That cover story is done now because this time it wasn't just rumors, it was open fighting. Everything changed the moment Brooklyn put out a long statement that hit like a bomb, shocking fans and people in the industry. In those words, he held nothing back. He said his parents tried to run his life, got in the middle of his marriage, and kept putting the Beckham brand before his own happiness. That wasn't soft, and it wasn't by accident. Then came the line that blew the whole thing wide open. Brooklyn made it crystal clear he wasn't looking to fix things, settle things, or make up. That one message flipped everything upside down and left everyone completely shocked. And to understand how things got this messy, you have to go back to April 2022. The wedding that looked perfect from the outside, but might have been the moment when everything really started falling apart. Brooklyn and Nicola's Palm Beach wedding looked unbelievable on the surface. Over 500 guests, famous people everywhere, and luxury piled on top of more luxury. The whole thing happened at the Peltz family's gorgeous house right on the beach. And for a moment it looked like pure perfection, just like a movie. But behind those big smiles and million-dollar photos, problems were already starting. Brooklyn later said that the first real big fight began over the wedding dress, something nobody outside the family even guessed at the time. According to him, Victoria Beckham first offered to design Nicola's dress. It sounded sweet, meaningful, and classy, but then at the last minute, that offer just disappeared. Nicola ended up wearing Valentino instead, and Brooklyn says that sudden change sent feelings flying during what was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives. What looked like a fairy tale might have actually been the start of a deep family split that's still falling apart today. Like Brooklyn put it, it was the hardest time for us because it felt like the whole world was against us. And the truth is we were against each other. That line alone hit fans right in the gut. The Beckham side never put out an official statement about this, but soon after, different stories started popping up everywhere, and the tension became impossible to hide. This wasn't a simple mix-up anymore. It felt like a power battle happening right in front of everyone. The whispers became headlines. And then came the moment people still talk about today, the wedding dance. According to Brooklyn, that dance was supposed to be his and Nicola's magical first moment as a married couple, a memory they'd never forget. But what happened next just added more fuel to a situation that was already on fire. But the night took a shocking turn the moment singer Mark Anthony picked up the microphone. What was supposed to be a sweet romantic highlight suddenly flipped in a way nobody saw coming. Instead of calling Nicola to the dance floor, Mark reportedly said, "Let's welcome the most beautiful woman in the room, Victoria." According to Brooklyn, the whole room froze right away. Nicola just stood there totally shocked, then ran off crying while hundreds of guests watched and didn't know what to do. And that wasn't even the end. Brooklyn says Victoria then started dancing with him, her own son, right there in front of everyone. A moment that left people confused, uncomfortable, and not sure how to react. Brooklyn later called the whole thing painfully awkward and deeply humiliating. He explained that during the dance, he was even told to put his hands on his mother's hips while his new wife was crying backstage. That one detail left fans absolutely stunned when it came out. Guests at the wedding said the mood felt tense and really weird. People gave each other uneasy looks, whispers spread everywhere, and nobody seemed to know what to do or how to help. That one dance changed everything for Brooklyn. What should have been a beautiful, once-in-a-lifetime moment became something he says he will never forget for all the worst reasons. According to him, the tension ran so deep that he and Nicola later chose to renew their vows in private. Not for attention, not for show, but to take back a moment they felt was stolen from them on their wedding night. For Brooklyn, that dance wasn't just uncomfortable, it became symbolic. He says it was the moment when boundaries were crossed and control was yanked away from him. It wasn't just about music or tradition anymore. It became about power, who he was as a person, and the fight to finally live his own life the way he wanted. But according to Brooklyn, the wedding drama was just the beginning of something way bigger. In his statement, he went even further and said something that shocked even long-time fans. He said that before the wedding, his parents pressured him to give up the rights to his own name. A move that could have changed everything from his business plans to his marriage and even the future he dreamed of for his own family. This wasn't just regular family tension anymore. This was about who he was, his freedom, and who got to be in control. Brooklyn made it clear that the stakes were way bigger than hurt feelings or simple misunderstandings. Not long after, fans noticed a big change. Brooklyn quietly changed his name to Brooklyn Peltz Beckham. What once seemed like just a creative rebrand suddenly made total sense. That name change became a public message, a clear sign that he was stepping out of the Beckham shadow and choosing to build something on his very own terms. Brooklyn also opened up about how love inside the Beckham household came with strings attached. According to him, support and affection often depended on what helped the family's brand. Showing up at events, posting polished photos, going to fashion weeks, and keeping everything camera-ready were what mattered. Miss a show, skip a photo moment, or forget a brand-friendly post, and the warmth just went away. That's when Brooklyn says he realized even family love had become part of the business. A realization that hit hard and changed the way he saw absolutely everything. Since putting out his explosive statement, Brooklyn and Nicola haven't looked shaken at all. Photos of the couple walking through Malibu hand in hand, smiling and totally relaxed, show two people completely at peace with what they decided. According to people close to them, sources say Brooklyn and Nicola finally feel free, like a massive emotional weight has been lifted after years of holding everything together behind closed doors. They're reportedly relieved the truth is out, and that they no longer have to pretend everything is perfect for the cameras. At 26, Brooklyn now seems totally focused on living life his own way, away from the constant pressure of the Beckham empire and all the expectations that came with it. Instead of chasing everyone's approval, he's put all his energy into new projects that actually make him happy. He's jumped headfirst into his love for food with Cooking with Brooklyn, launched his own golden hot sauce, built his lifestyle brand, Cloud 23, and put money into projects that have nothing to do with his famous last name. It's clear he's making his own lane, showing he doesn't need to lean on the Beckham name to make things happen or stay in the game. For Brooklyn, this isn't rebellion or revenge. It's survival. He's not trying to burn bridges, he's trying to breathe again. Meanwhile, the silence from the Beckham side has been impossible to ignore. David Beckham and Victoria Beckham haven't put out a single statement. No defense, no public reply, no peace offering. People on the inside say the family feels deeply hurt, but is staying quiet to avoid turning an already messy situation into a full public war. Still, the fallout keeps growing. Reports say Brooklyn has blocked his parents on social media and now only lets them communicate through lawyers. Brooklyn's younger brothers and sisters have stayed publicly neutral so far. No statements, no sides chosen, no obvious moves. But fans are watching closely and they've started noticing small online signals that suggest way more might be happening behind the scenes. Every tiny detail now feels loaded. Song choices, captions, likes, unfollows, even when someone posts, fans are breaking everything down piece by piece. Nothing looks like an accident anymore and people keep asking the same question. Whose side are they really on? But beyond all the online noise, there's a much bigger question that just won't go away. Is this just emotional hurt, or does it go way deeper than that? For decades, the Beckham brand stood as the best example of togetherness, loyalty, and worldwide success. A family that looked untouchable, admired, put together, and always perfectly lined up in public. Now that shiny image is cracking in real time, and what the public is seeing might only be the tip of something much bigger. When Brooklyn accused his parents of putting the brand above the family, he didn't just share private issues. He went after the very foundation of a carefully built empire that's been standing strong for over 25 years. The Beckhams spent decades shaping their image with total precision and control. Every red carpet moment, every so-called candid family photo, every carefully planned appearance was part of a bigger strategy. It wasn't just about being famous. It was about showing a perfect, united front to the world, with David Beckham and Victoria Beckham right at the center. The message was always loud and clear. This wasn't just a famous family. This was the family. And now, for the very first time, that image is being called out from the inside. But Brooklyn's words punched straight through that perfect image. He made it clear the perfection was all fake, saying that behind the glossy photos were pressure, control, and never-ending exhaustion. He described growing up always feeling like he couldn't just be himself. Every move had to protect the brand. Modeling, photography, acting. None of it was just exploring what he liked. It all had to fit the Beckham blueprint the world expected to see. On the outside, it looked amazing. But for Brooklyn, it slowly turned into a lifetime of anxiety. Even his personal dreams had to follow a family script that didn't really belong to him. No matter what he tried, nothing ever seemed to go right. Critics were ruthless and the internet showed zero mercy. They stuck him with one label, Nepo Baby, a tag Brooklyn has admitted followed him around like a shadow. To the public, his life looked like pure luck and privilege, but to him, it felt like living under a magnifying glass. He says he was never allowed to fail quietly, never allowed to mess up, learn, and move on like a normal person. Every stumble became a headline. That's what makes Nicola Peltz coming into his life so powerful. She came from a very different world. Still rich, still well-known, but raised in a family that valued privacy, closeness, and real connection over looking perfect in public. By her own words, the Peltz household wasn't about image. It was about being there for each other. Brooklyn has said that meeting Nicola showed him what calm, real love could actually feel like, a kind of support with no conditions or cameras attached. And once he experienced that kind of life, there was no going back. But the most emotional part of Brooklyn's story has nothing to do with money, fame, or fancy brands. It's about something way simpler and way more personal. Dogs. Brooklyn said that during the terrible Los Angeles wildfires, Nicola reached out to Victoria Beckham asking for help finding homes for animals that were displaced. According to him, that request was turned down and no help came at all. That single claim stunned fans because it hit differently. This wasn't about power, ego, or image. It was about being kind in a moment of crisis. Whether there's more to the story or not, that moment became deeply meaningful to Brooklyn. It showed just how far apart things had grown when all he was hoping for was warmth, caring, and basic family support. For Brooklyn, it wasn't just about animals. It was about realizing that even the smallest moments can show you who actually shows up when things really matter. And that's exactly why this fight has become so explosive. There are no clear bad guys here, just two sides telling very different versions of the same story. Online reactions have been split right down the middle. Some people are firmly behind Brooklyn, seeing him as a son finally breaking free after years of pressure and high expectations. Others are saying, slow down. There's always more going on behind the scenes than the public will ever know. And that split is only getting bigger. Some fans are calling Brooklyn's public confession raw, painful, and way overdue. They see it as a necessary release after years of staying quiet under pressure, but others are just as fired up on the opposite side. They're defending David Beckham and Victoria Beckham, pointing to decades of love, financial support, and non-stop opportunities they gave their son. To them, Brooklyn's accusations didn't just cross a line. They smashed a boundary that should never be broken publicly, no matter how much pain was involved. And right in the middle of all this chaos stands Nicola Peltz, now being called the lightning rod for the whole situation. Critics blame her for pulling Brooklyn away from his family and pushing the divide for her own benefit. But her supporters are fighting back hard. They say Nicola has become the easy target simply because she represents change. It's easier to blame the new wife than to face the cracks that may have already been there inside the family. Brooklyn hasn't wavered for even a second. He's been crystal clear that Nicola isn't controlling him at all. In fact, he says the opposite is true. According to Brooklyn, stepping away from his parents is what finally gave him the peace he's been searching for his whole life. That point means everything to him, and he's standing by it without any hesitation. And what makes everything even messier is the timing. This doesn't feel like a careless outburst or something said in the heat of the moment. It feels planned, thought out, possibly years in the making. This explosion didn't just happen overnight. And that realization is making people question how long this tension had been building before it finally spilled out into public view. This didn't come out of nowhere. According to Brooklyn, it was the result of years of bottled-up frustration finally boiling over. He says he tried over and over again to keep things private, to protect his family, and to stop personal pain from turning into a public show. But he says everything changed once he started seeing what he describes as a constant stream of media stories coming from his family's side. In his view, once that line was crossed, staying quiet just stopped being an option. For Brooklyn, speaking out wasn't about drama. It was about telling his side of the story. And that's exactly why this moment hit so hard. When he announced he didn't want to make up, it didn't sound emotional or impulsive. It felt final, heavy, and intentional. Not a pause, not a break, but a clear and firm decision. That's a chilling thing for any parent to hear. Fame aside, David Beckham, for his part, has only talked about the situation indirectly. He said kids should be allowed to make mistakes and need space to learn. His words were calm, measured, and very carefully chosen. Some people see that self-control as wise and mature. Others say it feels distant, almost too controlled for something this personal. Victoria Beckham, though, has stayed completely silent. Not a single public word. Many fans don't see that silence as a smart move. They see it as pure heartbreak. People on the inside say she's devastated by the thought that she might not be part of Brooklyn and Nicola's future children's lives. And according to those close to the situation, that possibility cuts deeper than anything else in this entire feud. So what happens next? Right now, nobody truly knows. Even crisis experts are split on how this ends. Some believe time could slowly smooth things out. They say public family fights like this often lose steam once feelings cool and the spotlight moves on. Distance, silence, and time can sometimes do what words just can't, but others aren't nearly as hopeful. They believe the damage is too deep, that the wounds have gone past the point where they can be fixed. To them, this looks like one of those breaks that never fully heals no matter how much time goes by. Because once accusations like these hit the public stage, there's no rewind button, no quiet family dinner, no private apology. Nothing can undo what millions of people have already seen, read, picked apart, and argued about online. And that's the brutal truth. This story stopped being about wedding drama or fashion tension a long time ago. What we're really watching is a family falling apart right in front of us. It's the cost of what happens when private pain becomes a public spectacle. When personal hurt becomes something the whole world feels like it gets to judge. For now, Brooklyn and Nicola are choosing distance, choosing peace over trying to control the damage. They've stepped back from the spotlight, shown up less, and taken full control over how their own story gets told. And that choice alone says everything about where they stand right now. Meanwhile, David Beckham and Victoria Beckham are holding on to their silence, maybe hoping that quiet restraint will speak louder than any public denial ever could. But the silence hasn't stopped people from guessing, and it hasn't slowed the conversation down at all. So now the world watches, curious, emotional, and completely divided. People are left wondering if this is truly the end of a long and painful chapter, or just the beginning of something even more permanent. Because when a family built on being together starts cracking in public, those cracks don't heal overnight. The once perfect image is now chipped and raw, showing something real underneath. A family that isn't flawless, isn't untouchable, but deeply human. No matter which side people take, one thing is for sure. This story has permanently changed how the Beckham name is seen. What once looked like a royal legacy now feels like a reminder. Even the most glamorous families can fall apart when the cameras stop rolling and real life takes over.